Alright everybody, sorry I'm not there today. Hopefully this will work out well enough though, so you, even though you can't see my shining face, you'll be able to get the information and with the help of one another be able to keep on task, and by the time I see you on Friday we will still be on pace. So, we are going to finish up what we were talking about yesterday. Yesterday we were talking about ellipses, so today we're going to talk about how to write the equation of an ellipse given a bunch of information. So let's do just a little bit of review. Remember I said yesterday, or we went through yesterday, generally equations of ellipses. One of them was the quantity of x minus h squared over a squared plus the quantity of y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. And the other one was the exact same thing, but over b squared, and this is over a squared. And what was the big difference? Well, the big difference was, since a is talking about or referring to the length of half the major axis and b is half the minor axis, wherever the major axis along with the x-axis, so this would be an ellipse that looks something like this, while this one with the a's underneath the y would be an ellipse that looks something like this. So, using that information, let's go through and do an example. So, the first example, I'm going to give you the endpoints of the major axis are -8, 0, and 8, 0. And the foci are at -5, 0, 5, 0. Okay? Give you a second to write that down. Now, the first thing that I would suggest is to just draw a rough sketch. Doesn't have to be perfect, but at least it gives you an idea of what you're dealing with. So, if we do that, and -8, 0 is way over here, and 8, 0 is way over here, and focal points, here's one of them, and here's the other one. So that means my ellipse has to look something like this. Not a bad ellipse right there. Now, the most important thing is it gives us an idea of which type of ellipse this is. If I look back up here, this is obviously going to fall into this category. So, let's start by just kind of drawing what this thing is going to say. Equals 1. So, we need to fill in some information. First, can we figure out the h and k, or the center? Well, the center is fairly easy, since this is out here at 8, 0, and this is at -8, 0. The center of that is 0, 0. So that was going to say x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared. Now a value. Remember, a is the length of half the major axis. So that's the distance from here to here. Well, that distance is 8. So this is going to be 8 squared. Now, the b is the length of half the minor axis, so that's this distance. Now, remember I gave you an equation yesterday that would help us figure that out, and that's that a squared equals b squared plus c squared. Well, a we know, a is 8, b we don't know, and c, well, c, remember, is this distance from here, from the center, out to a focal point. Well, if this focal point is at 5, 0, that means my c is 5. So solve. 64 equals b squared plus 25, and 39 equals b squared. And that's actually what we want, remember. This is going to be b squared down here, so I'm just going to put 39. So if I just simplify, I get x squared over 64 plus y squared over 39 equals 1. And there you go. And this should always be true. if it is a horizontal ellipse, the A should be bigger, and it should be underneath the x-axis. And that's exactly the way it is. So there's the first example. Pretty straightforward. Now, as we do this, if you have questions, make sure you just make a note of it, and then either today in tutorial or on Friday we can go through it. So, let's move on to the next example. This time, I'm going to give you the endpoints are -3, 2, and -3, -4. And I'm going to give you the other ones, -1, -1, and -5, -1. Okay, now I haven't told you what's the major axis, what's the minor axis, so we're going to have to figure that part out. So again, I think the best way to do that is to just draw just a rough sketch, so let's do that. Okay, so -3, 2 would be up here. -3, -4 would be down here. -1, -1 would be here. And -5, -1 over here. And so, I don't know if this is the most accurate drawing in the world, but it gives us the feel. So, it looks like it's a vertical ellipse this time. So that means we're going to be following this equation. 20 of x minus h squared, y minus k squared. So that's always the same, but now because it is vertical this time, this is my a squared, and this is my b squared. So we got to do a couple things here. One, let's figure out this stuff. That should be fairly easy. If this is way up here at -3, 2, and this is all the way down here at -3, -4, the distance from here to here, well, let's see, this is up 2 and that's down 4, so that distance is 6. Now remember, A is half that distance, so that means A is going to end up being 3. Now, the distance from this point, which is at -5, -1, and this one, which is at -1, -1, so the distance from -1 to -4 is, or -1 to -5 is 4, so half that would be 2. So B is 2. Okay, so that's not too bad. So B squared would be 4. A squared would be 9. Now the question is, what's my center? Well, that's fairly easy. The center is just going to be in the middle of these 2 points, or the middle of these 2 points. So you just need to do midpoint formula. So midpoint formula, let's just say we do these 2 points. So that would be -5 plus -1 over 2, and -1 plus -1 over 2. So that's -6 divided by 3, or probably -6 divided by 2 is -3. -2 divided by 2 is -1. So that's my center. So my equation, x plus 3 squared over 4 plus y plus 1 quantity squared. And there you go. Again, notice that the larger values underneath the y, my ellipse is a vertical ellipse. Okay. Again, if you have questions, make sure you ask, or ask a classmate, or just make a note to yourself, and we'll go through it on Friday. Alright, we have one more. Okay. Third and final example I want to go through. Okay, this time I'm going to tell you the major axis is 10 units long and parallel to the y-axis. The center is 3, 2. And the length is 6 units. Okay, so I'll give you a moment to write that down. If the substitute wants to just hit pause and give people a chance to write it down, feel free to do that. Now, let's go through and figure out what the heck we're doing here. Now, let's just read it again. It says the major axis is 10 units long. Okay, so just by that, we know that the A value, the whole thing is 10. That means the A value has to be 5. And then it says the length of the minor axis is 6. So that means since the whole thing is 6, that means the B value has to be 3. So right away, we got most of the information. Next thing, the center, we're given that. All right, that's good. But the question is this horizontal or vertical? Well, the fact that the major axis is parallel to the y-axis, that obviously means that it's going to be going in this direction. So when I write my equation, it's going to be x minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared. Now because it is vertical, that means it's going to be over 5 squared, or 25. This would be over 3 squared, or 9. And that's it. So sometimes, even though there's a decent amount of writing for us right there, just a little bit of common sense helps us out. So I hope that helps. Your job right now is you're going to work on the homework assignment for this section. And in about halfway mark of the class, we're going to go through the second set of notes. All right. Again, if you have any questions, come to the tutorial. I'll be here today. If not, then I'll see you on Friday.